because you're going to get a lot of rejections. It is important to remember that it is not your fault, and that does not necessarily mean your story is bad. Hey AuthorTube, today I'm going to talk about submitting your work. Either short stories, excerpts, whatever. They all come as we develop. I personally write something every week, like my minimum output, if everything else goes terrible, is 1,000 words of something that's like readable. And with that, I put it to my critique group. But more often than not, I've crafted short stories whenever I get a strong idea. And I make those short stories the best that I can through my critique partners and when loved ones read it. And eventually I polish them up and I find a genre for them and I send them off. As I said in my introduction video, I write everything. So it gets a little more complicated with me. Once you write a short story, anywhere from 600 to 5,000 to 10,000 words even, then you need to find a market to sell it. So why am I doing this, and why do I want you to do this? Or why should you? I guess, no, you don't have to. So why am I doing this? How is this helping me? Well, first of all, I have a bunch of short stories that otherwise would just sit around and do nothing, and I could publish them on a blog, but blogs can only get so much traffic when you are in obscurity. Even people that post stories to blogs might also want to have their work published in a magazine. And that will buff up your profile when you're trying to query agents, when you're trying to get in for conferences. That makes it much more impressive when you do readings, so people are more likely to come to you cold when they see that you have these achievements under your belt. You'll reach new readers that, one, read in your genre, and two, might want to follow you on social media and see what else you make and what other stories you have for sale. And not a reason for it would be to make money. It is impossible to make a living off of unsolicited magazine submissions. I think that, and Grat Faulkner from NaNoWriMo and the podcast Right Minded think so as well. It's just not mathematically possible. Here's the rub of it. Most magazines, when you submit, they publish 3 or 4 times a year, and then they have a 4-month reading period. So if you have a whole bunch of short stories and you send them out to people, it's possible they'll pay you, but most magazines pay on publication, which is 6 months later. So ideally, if you wanted to get your living that way, you would have to be constantly sending out short stories 6 months ago so that you can have money now. And even then, it's not guaranteed that the magazine will say yes. A lot of magazines at most will publish like 3 to 5 unsolicited stories a year. The higher end ones, some will be around 20 or 30, and there are literally thousands of writers doing this. Like, I'm doing this. There's lots of places to publish. A lot of them don't pay. You can learn all about it in the writer's market. I'm sure there's other magazines that do it, and writer's market is stocked in a lot of libraries. It's stocked in my personal library. Not my personal, my city's library. And you don't have to buy it every year because it's pretty much just, well, the deluxe edition, like, what is this? Oh man, I'm so bad at fractions. A tenth? A tenth of it is just writing advice. Yeah. And then other sections that are book publishers, and then there's a section for consumer magazines. I really love the digital editions of this book because then I can Control F search instead of having to bookmark every page and then go back and read. I can just go to the magazine or even search by genre to see all the magazines that have my genre in their description. I suspect that finding magazines to submit to is a lot easier when you do a single genre. But me, I write everything, so it gets very difficult and could be very disorganized very quickly. And the thing about these guys is they're very particular in how you send things to them. So you have to make sure you're not sending them more than one thing in a reading period, or they'll just throw them both out because too many, Raymond, bad. So like many things in writing, the surprising key to everything is staying organized. I use tables. So this is a physical copy I printed out that I like to use because it's good to see something in front of my face instead of scrolling all over on my computer. So I take all the relevant details to submitting and I put this in this graph and I organize it, and now I can see everyone's information all next to each other. And it's very helpful. And this took a couple hours of work, but that's hours of work that I would have been spending otherwise, and if I didn't put it in a good place like this, then I would just lose it. Because I've tried to do this before in years, and I didn't have this, and I was just lost the whole time. I have the name of the publication over here, then I have the reading dates, and how many entries they take. Several magazines will take more than one entries from an author, which is great, because then that's more than one time for your story to possibly get published. And then along with entries, if they take simultaneous submission. A simultaneous submission is when a magazine will take a story that you've also sent to another story around the same time, or even sharing a reading period. And when they say yes to that, that's because they have mechanisms to take your story out of the running if it's published somewhere else, because magazines don't want to publish stories that other people have published. Now, the problem with this is that magazines don't owe you shit. Wait, the other way. The problem with this is that you don't owe these magazines shit until they pay you. The magazines are not the boss. You are the boss, you are the writer, and these are their preferences for reading things. And if you need to submit things to multiple people, it's real important to do what they say so that they read what you want, but at the same time, they're most likely going to say no. And that's a spoiler for later in the video, but it's true? True. So one thing I'd say to do, if you have submissions that you want to send to multiple magazines, and the reading periods are a little bit over, I just send it to one that doesn't take simultaneous submissions first. And hopefully you'll get their rejection or acceptance before anyone else accepts you. That way, if the one that doesn't take multiple submissions accepts it, you can tell the ones that do that was accepted somewhere else. It is very important to avoid the possibility that you'll have to tell a magazine that doesn't take simultaneous submissions that you sent them your submission simultaneously with someone else. Because I think that's bad. I'm pretty sure these people talk to each other, and they kind of will note bad etiquette like that, so I try to avoid it. But at the same time, like, there's this balancing act with me, because at once you should follow directions, but the other time you have no reason to. I don't know if even I just imagine if this video gets big and then they're like, this guy doesn't listen to our submissions. Listen to submissions. Just like, just don't make them holy and hold them above you and get all religious and weird about it. Not that I've seen it even do that. See what I even talk about? No one's even complained about it. People won't even complain about it until I put this video. Then they'll come out of the woodwork and I have no idea this was a thing. There's a whole legion of bitter things. So how I make sure not that I don't accidentally simultaneous submission. One is that I have a crap load of stories, so I don't feel the need to do simultaneous submissions because I have so many short stories I could send at any one time. Second way is I keep track of it with this other table. I'm not done describing table 1, so we're going to skip to this table now. I apologize. I am not very well organized. I should have put this video script on a table. So this is a simpler graph, because all this is for is making sure a certain story is only sent to one place. So I put the story name in this first column. And that's important because this first column is only going to one person, or one publication. I have these two empty columns because I wanted to track every short story I did through the process of its existing until it was ready for publication. So my first box is, has Brittany read it, and what does Brittany think? Brittany is my partner. The second box used to be Scribophile, but I am not happy with Scribophile for critique partners, so it's been switched with my critique partner group. What they thought of it. Once I'm happy enough with the story and I think it either one can't be a short story that's worth publication somewhere, I then mark where I've sent it for publication. And then, very importantly, what date I sent it off and what date their reading period ends by. So then I can send it to my second choice publisher here, and then I put that date. Then I reread the story, decide if I have improved as a writer since I made this, and I can revise it, I can let it go, or I can put it on my blog, which I haven't put a short story on my blog, Sugar Words, in a very long time. Just because, you know, let's see. The first thing on here is Our Dying Days. I sent that to the Idaho Review back in January. And their reading period isn't over until this month. I think I marked it on this calendar. Yeah, the 17th. I've got Our Dying Days back. Their reading period is over, and I can send that to another magazine. And of course, I have all this attached to my calendar, so then I can write when magazines are opening, if I should have magazine ready, and I can mark the day my story's opened up again. So this week I actually submitted a short story. I submitted my story Obsidian Sun to Strange Horizons, and that was the 24th, Monday the 24th. They only take submissions on Mondays. It's very odd. And their reading period can be as short as a month or as long as 6 weeks. So you can do math, or you can count out 1, 6. Black Sun is back. And I keep track of this for them because they are probably the shortest reading period of all of the magazines I submit to. You aren't allowed to submit the same piece twice. You're not allowed to submit again until 7 days after your last submission is rejected. So this is all the way over in August 12th. But possibly they could reject it before then, or even accept it before then. And if that happens, then I go 7 days after that date to submit something to them. Now there's also a thing with, at the end of their reading period, you can query them to see what they thought of your story. I haven't found like a good reason to do that. I don't expect them to remember what they thought of my story. And I don't really want to wait another week for my letter to go off in the mail. Then they're like, yeah, we rejected it. Otherwise we would have told you. Like, who's gonna not tell me they accepted and want to pay me for my work? We're gonna go back to table 1 after that fantastic tangent. I haven't messed up my video because that was all part of the table discussion. So next I have is their submission criteria and their genre. So they're looking for multi-ethnic fiction, general fiction, interested in literary fiction. Any descriptions they put on, we're looking for something different but dark. Asimov's is looking for hard sci-fi, but they want an emphasis on good character-driven stories. And then some of them are special. The Thelma Literary Society, which only accepts submissions that are based off their writing prompts. And I don't suggest sending them any random stories and trying to like loosely connect them. Really take a writing prompt. That's why they exist, and it could be really fun. Pay rates can be anywhere from 0 to exposure to a copy of the magazine to a flat rate of $50 or $20 or $25 or $15, or they might go off the word. And most ones off the word is like penny on the word. Some of them change depending on how long your story is. So that's a lot of factors to carry in, especially when you read through the writer's market and just about anywhere, and every magazine has different criteria for how they pay you and what they're looking for. It's not like a uniform submission. Everyone's not like 4 cents a word, 3 cents a word. They're all different. So the system that I devised in order to keep that track of their pay scale is I have a pay rate minimum and a pay rate maximum. And because it's on a spreadsheet, I can use a mathematical formula to then coordinate it with their word count minimums and word count maximums to tell then the minimum possible payment from them and the maximum possible payment from them. This isn't necessary because a lot of magazines just do like a flat 50 cents, but it gets really hard to keep track of because some people will do $5 a page and you're like, how many words is on a page? And then you have to find their magazine and guess how many words is on that page. And then here I snuck in 2 little ones. I have a row that takes me to their website, and this is very useful for my checklist when I submit it, to have their website and specifically their submission part of their website open, that I can just go to it and see what their rules are. Now, submission method is way out there for a lot of them. A lot of magazines have gone to digital, which is fine. It's quick and easy. Personally, I have a kit. So I have a stock of business size and 10 by 12 envelopes to send my submissions in. Usually around 6 pages. A story's a little unwieldy to send to someone, but always send SASE, self-addressed stamped envelope. If you're sending your story in a business envelope, I kind of half fold another envelope with my address and with a stamp on there, and I put it inside the first envelope with my story, and I put it in the mail. But if it's a big envelope, you can just put it inside. It's important to read their submission criteria, because if you don't submit it correctly, they won't read it and they'll throw it away. Some people take it by email, some people take it by attachment. Some of them can't open attachments because they've been hit by viruses too many times, so they want you to paste it in the body of the email. I've only seen that once, but it's a weird thing. But a lot of magazines have started setting up their own website or going through Submittable. My preference whenever I send stuff out is to do it by mail, just because it feels kind of great to print out my stories and send them off to people, and I can put the stamp and I have that whole kit. Even though it is easier to do it digitally, I don't like it as much. And there's also the other little tangent that Submittable costs them money to run and use, and they've happily passed that expense to you. Several submissions through Submittable cost $3 to send them in, and I don't like that because I did not spend $3 on my envelope and printing stuff. At the end of the day, there's stuff that I should have as an adult and keep in stock as an adult. It's like paying your phone bill. I just have envelopes and stamps, and it isn't a big deal to send it along. But that's a disagreement and a debate, and you don't have to submit to those assholes. I don't know why people don't want me to send things in the mail. I love sending things, and people love getting letters and stuff that aren't bills. You can do that. If you want, I have a Patreon and a Patreon tier. Well, I will send you letters. I will handwrite a letter and send it to you in the mail. And I'm thinking of adding ones where I added printout stories. But there isn't a big call for that yet, so I'm trying to push it. I guess I am trying to push it. I kind of want to. Then again, this isn't the channel I'm trying to sell stuff to, because writers, community. Yeah, I don't want to sell you things if you're a writer. And then I just have another spot for notes. I have another table that I keep digital for indie and smaller publishers that I've actually met them. Living next to Iowa City, there's the Writers Conference and there's a couple of art festivals that draw in publications and magazines, and they send their editors to the city over here. So I went and I met some of them, and it was very weird, and they all asked if I was a writer, and it was very intimidating, but I got used to saying my name is Ray Richards, I'm a writer. But I didn't always say my last name, which is a shame, and I didn't always get their name because I was tired and I literally talked to 50 people in a row. Oh man, that was like a whole thing. I'm just dumping it in the middle of this video. Why did I think this would be a fast video? Why did I think I would have to work hard to squeeze 12 minutes out? So yeah, so then I have a bit for notes for if I've met them, if I have any rejections, if I have any really good experiences with their editors. If they said anything to me, I make a note of that and that I like it and give it a star. And this is the printout version, so it will go out of date quickly. One thing that's out of date is Tin House closed. They put out their last issue this season. You can't be published in Tin House anymore. And then Stepping Stones is defunct. Their website went blank. No one's getting responses, so we're pretty sure that one's gone. So I scratched that one off, which is a shame because Stepping Stones published a lot of manuscripts a season. Is it on here? It's not on here. So that's too bad. Economy's tough. Capitalism sucks. And then I hide them in my calendar because I'm a genius boy and I like not having a cluttery wall. So there's a couple things you need to remember to do when you submit. This is my submission checklist that I don't have written down and that I just thought of this as I do it. So when you get something ready to submit it, check the preferences again. Even if you know the preferences, there's a lot of magazines with a lot of different preferences, so I don't blame you for forgetting. Don't just double check the writer's market because this can be out of date and wrong. Double check their website, make sure that the website is still up, that they haven't closed, that you followed all of their preferences. Double check your font size, your manuscript size. Some of them don't want your name on the document so it can be blind, so take that off if that's what they're asking. Again, make sure the publication is still open because I've had several that were closed. Just to throw that out there. It's not a happy thing, but it's a reality thing. And yeah, it's hard for publishers, it's hard for us too. So it's a hard knock world. And capitalism wasn't made to make art. Maybe proofread your story one last time before you submit it or you finalize it or you turn it into a PDF or whatever, and then send it. So yeah. Along with your double checking, maybe you can double check your tables and make sure that you didn't accidentally send that story with a different title to someone else. Maybe that happened to me. It didn't happen to me, but it almost happened to me. I was afraid of it happening. I got this from Stephen King's On Writing. He collected rejection letters, which is a problem when they don't send you rejection letters or any word. But when you get rejection letters or emails, you can print them off, and Stephen King collected them and put them on a nail. Now, I am not a psychopath that does cocaine to do his writing, so I don't have random nails sticking out of my wall. So my friend Cyclops has taken up for me. These are some nice little rejection letters I've gotten. Dear Ray Richards, thank you for submitting C Clips to Horizons. We've decided not to accept it for publication. We appreciate your interest in our magazine. Sincerely, and then that's the editor's name. I don't know if I should say that or not. And then I just print it off and I put it on Cyclops, who's my favorite X-Men. He was my favorite X-Men as a kid. I like more now. Because you're going to get a lot of rejections. It is important to remember that it is not your fault, and that does not necessarily mean your story is bad. Now with magazines, they only have so much space. They are literally planning out a magazine in plots of land as they go. So it's possible that your story just doesn't fit literally in the amount of space they have left to publish, in the amount of pages they have left to make stories. It could be that it's just not to the taste or to the theme of what they are writing there in that month, in that issue. In some cases, it comes down to research and knowing the tone of the story that your soul put out doesn't quite fit the tone of the magazine. And it could just be that it got stuck in any amount of beta reading by volunteers, interns. There's a whole bunch of people that have to read things very quickly to get your submission before it's able to be in a magazine. So the most important thing to deal with when dealing with rejection is to send it again. And possibly, if once you've sent it 2 or 3 times and it's been a year since you've written the story, maybe find another avenue for it. Maybe just put it together and it can be submitted as a collection of short stories later on, because there are several magazines that publish collections of a single author's short stories. Or maybe it's time to put it in a blog, or to make it a teaser, or to make it a Patreon bonus, or even to make it a reward for people signing up for your newsletter. I'm pretty sure we all need a newsletter. I don't have one yet, but I'm pretty sure I need one. Maybe that'll be another topic. But it's very important. Know that everything you write has some kind of value, but the value of some things is just in having written it. So you can put it behind you and go on to make the next story. Because I think the most important part of writing short stories is finishing things and having written them so you can write more. And that is how I approach it. So did I forget anything? Because I forget things all the time. Do you submit short stories? Do you have a similar method? Do you have a better method? Did I totally fuck something up? Should I care a bit more about query letters? Because right now I don't care about query letters, and I don't feel like I have a great reason to. You can make me feel differently about that. I want to point out that there's a difference between querying agent and then querying a magazine to see if they wanted your magazine story you sent 6 months. I don't really get a why. I don't have a strong why for why to query. And that is a me problem, and I don't understand it. And it's possible that everyone has explained it to me, or that it's self-explanatory. It's just not something that I value. So yeah, thanks for watching AuthorTube. Like and subscribe. Put down a little comment with those questions I asked. Don't smash my like button, because they're expensive, and I don't have very many. Carefully press the like button. It is a fragile thing. It will break.